Hello and welcome to the First and 10 podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Feltz, here in Bloomington, Indiana. We're recording today our reactions to week one of Big Ten football. We are back. We've got real live football games to talk about that happened this Friday and Saturday all across Big Ten country, 7 of them. And joining me to talk about it all is Reid. What's going on, Reid?
What's up, Pat? As you can see, I got on my Ohio State Hawaiian shirt. This is going to be my victory shirt after every Ohio State win to celebrate. But good week one. We got an Ohio State win. We got an Indiana win and a lot of overall exciting football. So I'm really happy with the way week one turned out.
Right, and it just felt good to have the Big Ten back on TV. I said it and you said it. I think we tweeted at the exact same time. We are so glad to see the Big Ten map commercial back on TV. And even little things like that just kind of make you realize that our favorite conference is back on the field, and it feels good.
Yeah, who knew how much we'd miss Big Ten commercials? But honestly, Big Ten commercials are some of the best things ever.
Right, yeah. And speaking of best things ever, let's talk about one of my favorite college football games I've ever watched, from a personal standpoint and really just from a general excitement standpoint. I think objectively, this was just an amazing game from all standpoints. Let's talk about our top story today. We both called it. The Indiana Hoosiers upset the Penn State Nittany Lions at home. The number 8 Penn State Nittany Lions, they fall into 18. Indiana's up to number 17 in the polls, 36-35 in overtime. We called it, but it didn't exactly go down the way we expected, or really the way anybody expected.
Yeah, you're right. I would say this is one of the best football games I've ever seen. I mean, this is up there with Ohio State, Penn State in 2017, Ohio State, Penn State 2016 when they blocked the kick, and that Baylor TCU game from 2014. This is one of the best college football games in the last decade, or really since the start of the new decade. This is one we'll be looking at 10 years from now when we look back at the 2020s. This was a great one, and honestly, the end of the game was super exciting. But we got to go back to the beginning, and the defense for Indiana is what won them this game. It was really the defense because they came up with 3 turnovers against a really good Penn State offense, 2 picks and 1 forced fumble inside the red zone. That's the kind of plays that you need to upset a team like Penn State, especially early in the season when not everybody's fine-tuned. You need to be making plays like this to pull off an upset of this magnitude, and they did it. The Indiana defense came up strong, and that for me is the biggest thing that won Indiana this game.
Right, and when it comes to Indiana, if they were going to win this game, I didn't think it would be off of the back of the defense. I thought it would be because, Stevie Scott ran for 120 yards or Michael Penix threw for 350 yards, something like that. And that wasn't it. It was because this defense was strong, especially in the first half of this game, only giving up 7 points on that opening drive and, forcing turnovers, 3 of them, 2 of them because of Jamar Johnson, who had an incredible game, 10 tackles, an interception, and a forced fumble. The Indiana defense looks legit, and the offense, while it started out really slow, really came into its own by the end of the fourth quarter, especially on that final drive, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And Penn State, they've been known as chokers. That's how I see Penn State. They have somehow out-choked themselves because as much credit as you got to give to Indiana for pulling off this win, Penn State really gave it away. I mean, you got a Heisman caliber quarterback, or at least a Heisman contender quarterback, and Sean Clifford throwing 2 picks. Will Levis, he fumbled the ball in his first play in the game inside the red zone. He took over for Sean Clifford at quarterback briefly, and then they got yanked out of the game after that. Jake Pinniger missed a 25-yard field goal right before the half, immediately after this Penn State defense had forced a fumble with seconds left on the clock. They went through this whole debacle about time left on the clock just to get Penn State these 2 remaining seconds to kick this field goal, and he misses a chip shot. And it's hard to say if this one play would have gone differently, the game would have gone differently because that affects the whole course of events. But you got to say that if Pinniger makes one of the 2 field goals he missed, especially this 25-yarder, Penn State probably wins this game. I mean, what a choke job. And Devin Ford running the ball into the end zone, we should have taken a knee. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, you can say that's his fault. You can say it's James Franklin's fault. Either way, Penn State's got to be more aware of what they're doing in terms of clock management there. And it's just, when is Penn State going to learn how to handle a lead, how to keep a lead? And I mean, granted, they weren't leading for most of this game, but when they have a lead late in the game, they have to learn how to manage it better and to maintain it. I mean, this was typical Penn State. This was an absolute James Franklin choke job masterclass.
Right. And you talk about that Devin Ford play near the end of the game. If you didn't get to watch this game somehow, and you really, really, really missed out on an absolute classic, I'll break it down for you. So basically, uh, Indiana's got 4th and 21 on their own 15 or so yard line. Incomplete pass to Ty Freifogel. Penn State takes over on downs. So there's about a minute and 40 left. Penn State's got the ball. They're up a point. Instead of running out the clock, which they could have done, Indiana only had one timeout. Penn State decides to run a play. IU lets them score. Devin Ford takes the ball into the end zone. Penn State goes up 8 points. IU let them score. They let them score because they wanted to get the ball back. They wanted a chance. They didn't have to have a chance. Penn State could have ended the game right there. They gave him a chance, and Indiana capitalized. And, you can say that's on Devin Ford for taking the ball into the end zone, but I think a lot of that's on the coaching staff. That's on Kirk Shiraka. That's on James Franklin. He's late game James. Can't get it done late in the game. His time management skills are terrible. Devin Ford is not paid $5 million a year to know what to do in that situation. James Franklin is. That's the difference for me. And you think that is probably the easiest scenario in football. Just run out the clock. Don't run up the score when there's no need. Because they really could have ran out the clock, or they could have left about 20 seconds left for Indiana, which is, relatively nothing.
Now, to be fair, as much as Michael Penix struggled that game, he does have a cannon for an arm, and it's not impossible for Indiana to get a huge pass play and potentially lock up the game with a late field goal. So,
well,
I wouldn't
they
say you want to necessarily
no,
need the ball.
No. Let's say this: they couldn't have needed out. Let's say that you kick a field goal. Penn State was up 1, so that makes it a 4-point game. A field goal does nothing for Indiana. So what's more likely?
I'm saying Indiana could have gotten a field goal.
What do you mean? When?
I'm saying if Indiana got the ball, let's say Penn State runs out the clock and there's still those 20 seconds left, they could get
they could have run out the clock to the point. They could have run out the clock for 3 plays and then kicked a field goal on the last one on 4th down.
Yeah, but I'm saying
that's what they should have done.
Right.
That's absolutely what they should have done. No, there's no question about that, because that still makes it a 2-possession game, or 1-possession game, but a non-field goal game. Getting the ball to the field goal area for Charles Campbell to kick it wouldn't have done anything. But they went up 8. They gave IU time, and Michael Penix had the drive to end all drives. He was absolutely lights out on this drive. If he had a pretty bad game, from start of the game till just about right then and there to the last minute 40, from then on, from minute 40 and overtime, he was lights out. And with Penix, we all expected him to play better. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But it makes sense given that he hadn't played in about a year coming off of surgery. He's been inactive for a year. That's hard to come back from and be just like that, lights out automatically. Once he had kind of shaken off the rust by the end of the 4th quarter, he was absolutely electric when he needed to be.
And to go back to that kneeing the clock out type scenario, it seems like a first down wins the game there. So really the best course of action for Penn State is to, if Indiana lets you score, get that first down, take a knee right in front of the goal line.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Devin Ford went into the end zone, though. That's the thing.
But even with that Devin Ford touchdown, you have an 8-point lead with a minute and change remaining against an Indiana team who hasn't really been able to do much for the entire game. I mean, a lot of Indiana's drives came off of turnovers, so they weren't driving down the field, drive in, drive out.
Right.
And this was a Michael Penix.
You still don't want to give them that chance, period.
Oh, you're absolutely right. But I think the defense has got to come up with something a little stronger in those last few minutes, because this is Michael Penix, who has been struggling. I mean, I wouldn't even say he was having a rough day. He was having a bad day. I mean, it was Stevie Scott who was really the guy who got Indiana their yards and their points. So it's, when you look at it, minute and 20 or so left in the game, 8-point lead, you got to have confidence in Penn State to be able to stop them. And if they don't stop them, at least stop them on the 2-point conversion, which that does prove how clutch Michael Penix was in this game. I mean, he had a bad game, but you're absolutely right. He came up extremely clutch, and that's really what mattered. It was the defense that won the game early for Indiana, and it was Michael Penix who won the game late.
Yeah, the defense kept him in it, but Michael Penix is the one who got it done in crunch time. He absolutely got it done. And credit to Tom Allen, too. Letting Penn State score there, genius. Genius move. And on James Franklin and Devin Ford for falling for that just makes Tom Allen look all the smarter.
Yeah, and as much as the Penn State defense had to come up stronger in the end, the Penn State defense was very strong throughout this entire game. Shaka Toney was a monster. He was the reason. I mean, after his really good defensive drive, that forced an Indiana 3rd and I believe 23, and the 4th and 23, that should have won the game for Penn State. Shaka Toney just about won it in the end for them, and unfortunately, it didn't happen. Lamont Wade, he was all over the field. He was tearing it up on this Penn State defense. He was one of the most impressive players out there for me. Although late in the game, he had one of the stupidest plays I've ever seen. It was 4th and 23. Penix chucks the ball up to Ty Freifogel. He doesn't come down with it, and Wade almost gets a targeting call. That would have not only taken him out of the game, one of Penn State's best players that day, it would have given Indiana a whole new life, whole new set of downs. So that's the kind of thing Penn State, you got to do better on that front. But this Penn State defense was strong throughout the game, and they really deserved to win it. And it was unfortunate for them that their offense and their coaching staff couldn't do it for them. But this defense put up a performance that was worthy of coming away with a win.
Well, a couple of things with that. It's funny that if Shaka Toney doesn't get those 2 giant sacks and force a 4th and 21, and also not getting that targeting call, those 3 things, Indiana probably doesn't win the game. It's kind of tough for them to see them, the way the offense is playing up until that point before the, amazing final drive. Up until that point, it was kind of hard to see them doing anything except for capitalizing off of Penn State mistakes and penalties. The Penn State having the ball in their own 15 or on the IU 15 or whatever, and then scoring the touchdown and giving IU time, kind of lit a fire under the Hoosiers, and they might not have won the game otherwise.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Even giving another 5 yards to Penn State, to Devin Ford, to not go into the end zone, he might have realized that he might have heard his coaching staff and his teammates yelling at him, don't go in, don't go in. Even another yard or two probably could have seen a different story, and they could have run out the clock. So, it's crazy to think how every play, every inch counts. And where that really comes into play is the Michael Penix game-winning 2-point conversion in overtime. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about the play before it. The beautiful pass from Penix to Whop Phillier in the corner of the end zone. He gets a foot down, gets the toe drag. Just an excellent pass. And that really showed me that Michael Penix started out rough, but he knew what he was doing by the end of that game.
Yeah, Penix really saved himself. I mean, the Indiana fans already love him, but he's a whole new legend now because Indiana, you got to realize this Indiana team, they said this stat about 1 million times in the broadcast that they hadn't gotten a top 10 win since 1987. Not only that, they hadn't, their last ranked win they had was in 2016 against Michigan State. That Michigan State team turned out to be 3-9. Before that, it had been a decade since they beat a ranked team. So Indiana has been a team, and they've always come up close. They've given Ohio State, Michigan, and in recent years, Penn State rough games. And they've been the team who almost gets it, and they finally got it. Indiana fans are going to remember Michael Penix forever because of that. He's the one who he and Tom Allen are the 2 people who are going to go down in Indiana history for sealing the deal, finally getting it done for Indiana. And they're going to be Indiana legends forever.
I've been watching Indiana football my entire life. I was there for 1-win seasons, for chokes against Michigan, chokes against Ohio State, chokes against everybody. I've been there for the Pinstripe Bowl, the kick, the Gator Bowl, you name it. All the awful things that happened to Indiana football in the last 10 years, the Kevin Wilson debacle, all of it. I was there. I never thought they'd win a game like this. They are so prone to choking it, and it's amazing. It was unbelievable. I can't even really put it into words. The fact that I just saw Indiana football do that. They got it done against a top 10 team. It's absolutely astonishing because year after year, game after game, I've been let down by this team. And, the funny thing is every single letdown game, there's always the one play that sticks out. In the Gator Bowl, it was the onside kick. In The Pinstripe Bowl, the kick was good, that whole thing. But this one, I thought it was going to be the Peyton Hendershot drop that could have sealed the game potentially. Then I thought it was going to be the squib kick botch that gave Penn State great field position and a chance to kick a 57-yard field goal for the win that just ever so slightly went short. That's good from 56. What a crazy way to end regulation. But there were so many moments where it was like, this is Indiana football. This is how we're going to lose it. And that's going to be what goes down in memory. But no, it's a good memory how the game ended. Michael Penix stretching across the goal line by an inch, by a millimeter maybe, getting into the end zone. If he got into the end zone at all, up for debate. Call on the field stood though. And with that, even if the call was a little shaky, I'm not even sure if he broke the plane or not. It was really tough to tell, but the call on the field was he was in. You're not overturning that. There was no indisputable video evidence.
Yeah, and you can debate about this play for hours, but the fact of the matter is the ball touched the pylon. The pylon is part of the end zone. That's the touchdown. So the ball,
but
indisputably.
Can I tell you this? The ball hit the ground before it hit the pylon. There's no doubt about that. But I think he broke the plane before it hit the ground. I think it goes plane, ground, pylon, 2 points, Indiana wins.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of still photos, videos, GIFs all around going, circulating social media about this play. But the fact of the matter is it was called a touchdown on the field, and there is no indisputable evidence that says this wasn't a touchdown. And it may look at first, when the play first happened, I thought it wasn't in, and I was disappointed. But the call on the field was a 2-point conversion. And there's no evidence in the world that says this is undoubtedly not a 2-point conversion. This is not good. So you got to let the call on the field stand. That's just the rules of football. You need indisputable video evidence. We didn't have it. That is a 2-point conversion. And I've seen Penn State fans on every nook and cranny of the internet complaining about this call. But the fact of the matter is there were so many calls that went Penn State's way throughout this game. All the way early in the game when it came to the muff punt for Penn State that Indiana fielded that should have stayed Indiana's ball in great field possession, that went Penn State's way. Like I said earlier, the Wade targeting
Stevie
call.
Scott targeting, yeah. The Stevie Scott targeting and the Ty Freifogel targeting. No call targetings.
Exactly, yeah. Those two lack of calls, that's enough to say there is justice from the football gods in this game that gave Indiana the win. So they deserved it, and just the amount of calls that didn't go their way, it doesn't bother me. That final 2-point conversion, as shaky as it was, did go the way of the Hoosiers.
And this play, I think, is going to be remembered probably by college football fans for a very long time, but certainly by IU fans. This is one of the most legendary moments in the history of IU athletics. When you think of legendary IU sports moments, the Keith Smart national championship shot, the Christian Watford shot, all stuff like that. But this one, I think, is kind of the one for the football program that is on that list. It was unbelievable. Nothing like it. They're already printing shirts. I bought the shirt from Home Field Apparel already. The Reach 36-35. This is a legendary moment that I think IU fans are never going to forget. It was a super special night, and hopefully it's one that signals a changing direction for Indiana football and something they can capitalize on and keep a lot of momentum from.
Yeah, this is going to be a game that Indiana fans tell their kids about, tell their grandkids about, tell their great grandkids about. Because
I'll never forget where I was.
Yeah, I don't think I will either. And I'm not even a full-time Indiana fan, but that game was just so. And the fact that this game could be a program changer, I said it that we both said it that if they win this game, it's going to be a program changer. Not only is Indiana's name all over ESPN, Fox, CBS, every college football account on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. That's national attention on a program who hasn't gotten a lot of it in their history. But a winning culture is being built right now. So when you look back in history, if Indiana becomes what we think they're going to become in the next few years, this is going to be the moment that started it, and that's going to be what people remember. So I can't even put into words how big this is for their program. You could feel it coming last year when they when they started, when Tom Allen's team really finally started to click. But now it's really it's really in motion now. So whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't think there's as cool of a name as the Shianaissance Rutgers, but whatever you would call the Indiana equivalent to that, I need somebody to come up with a nice pun. That's underway.
Yeah, that was huge. And you're going to see this week, I think, can they capitalize on it? Can they keep the momentum going against Rutgers, a Rutgers team who won their week 1 game, but we'll get to them eventually. Can they keep it going? They got to keep the momentum. This is a great win, but you can't dwell on it for too long. And I think that they're going to keep in the locker room, like, we got to keep moving forward. But huge win for IU, no doubt in my mind. We're going to start doing a little thing here. We're going to do a player of the game for every game after we do our recaps. Who's your player of the game for this one?
I'm going to go with Jamar Johnson. I think you had the same pick. But speaking of picks, he came up with a huge one to give Indiana great field position. Led to, I believe, a touchdown from Stevie Scott. He also forced the fumble from Will Levis that gave Indiana possession again. And not only that, that was a clear scoring opportunity for Penn State. They were inside the red zone. I believe it was 1st and goal. They were about to score. That's huge for Penn State. He just came up so strong this game. Clear player of the game. And by the way, when we were talking about the defense earlier, this is a defense who doesn't have Marcelino Ball, arguably their best player on defense. He's gone. And the fact that Indiana could step up like this, especially Jamar Johnson individually stepping up, that's huge. He's player of the game. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, huge game from Jamar Johnson. I won a Grammy. 10 tackles, interception, forced fumble. Massive. He would be my player of the game if you didn't pick him. I'm going to go a different direction, though. You know, Michael Penix Jr. was pretty bad for most of this game. Not going to argue on that. He started out, he was really rusty, missed a lot of open receivers, bad passes, threw a pick. Didn't look great. However, he got it done when it mattered, and we talked about this. That final drive, 75 yards down the field in crunch time, throwing balls on a dime, lasers, getting guys their first career catches in, you know, the most crucial moments of the game. Jacoby Hewitt, Javon Swinton getting huge catches, especially Hewitt. Michael Penix fit that ball into a tiny window. Incredible throw under pressure. He got the QB sneak to set up the 2-point conversion, and then he got the 2-point conversion on an incredible juke, getting that ball into the end zone, tying the game up. And then in overtime, he hits Wab Fillier in the back of the end zone for a touchdown, and then the incredible 2-point conversion to win the game. Yeah, he didn't have the best game ever to start, but at the end of all things, he's going to be the guy you remember from this game. An incredible effort from Michael Penix, and he's my player of the game.
Yeah. Penix, not great throughout the entire game, but he definitely came up and performed when it mattered. So Penix, completely valid pick for player of the game, honestly.
Yeah, so that's it for this game, and that's one I'm sure that'll come up plenty of other times in the future. Maybe we'll even do a rewatchable on that in the offseason.
And speaking of that,
I've rewatched plays from this game hundreds of times at this point, just the last 2 days.
Yeah, speaking of rewatchables of First and 10 classics, you got to go check out the Hoosier Experience. Our guy Aiden Kunst did an episode with Patrick breaking down this game. That episode, just like the game itself, is one it's going to be timeless. You can go back to it and just relive the game. Really good breakdown by the two of them. So make sure you go check that one out.
For sure. Thanks for plugging it. Shout out to Aiden. Great episode from him. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, make sure if you're an Indian fan, check out the Hoosier Experience. Great podcast.
Yeah, lots of good basketball and football content. But let's get into the rest of the slate from this week. So we're going to go back in time a little bit. We're going to go to the Friday night game. Illinois and number 14, Wisconsin. Badgers get it done 45-7 in Madison. First game of the season. Completely different look from the Badgers. The run game was not there. Wisconsin did not run the ball well. Me and you both said it. We were like, this is going to be the Graham Mertz offense. We don't like either of these running backs too much. And what do you know? Graham Mertz goes out there, the redshirt freshman, 20 for 21, 248 yards, 5 touchdowns. The Wisconsin air raid is here, or it was until Graham Mertz got COVID.
Yeah, I really hope that was a false positive because, first of all, I want to see him take down Michigan. But you just hate to see that happen to a guy, especially he has such an electric debut, and now he's got to be out for 21 days. I do hope that was a false positive because any objective college ball fan should want to see Graham Mertz play as much as possible, as exciting of a player as he is.
Yeah, the guy's a lot of fun to watch. He had an incredible game. And me and Reid, we were both talking about this beforehand. We knew he was going to be special, and special he was. Only one incompletion. That's incredible. 5 touchdown passes in his debut, ties the Wisconsin record for a debut. I think the days of Jack Cohn and the run-heavy Badger offense are a thing of the past, at least in the Graham Mertz era. And we'll see what it looks like under Chase Wolf or Vanden Boom, whoever's the starting quarterback, probably Chase Wolf after this, who, he was a highly rated recruit. Ohio State went after him hard, gave him a late offer. But, not having Graham Mertz is going to hurt Wisconsin next week because he was incredible against Illinois.
Yeah, and I did a film session on Graham Mertz, and I said that he's the future of Wisconsin football, but he even surprised me. I saw a lot of good things in him, but I did not see a one incompletion performance in his first ever start. I didn't see him doing what he did against Illinois. I said he's going to settle in well because he faces 2 bad defenses early, but week 1 he's going to struggle because Illinois has a really good secondary. That Illinois secondary did not show up at all, and Graham Mertz just torched him.
Yeah, so much for the vaunted Illinois secondary. And, the Illinois defense made one play. They had a fumble recovery that turned into a touchdown. That's it. And the Illinois offense was completely stagnant. Great effort by the Wisconsin defense, by the way. If they get to play this week against Nebraska, it should be a little bit bigger of a challenge. But this unit looks really strong. And if Wisconsin, they could be in a little bit of trouble, I think a little bit without Mertz for 3 weeks due to the COVID rules in the Big Ten. But the defense, I think, is going to keep them in pretty much any game.
Yeah, and Illinois really disappointed in this game. I mean, I wasn't expecting them to be world beaters or anything this year, and I have them finishing last in the West, but hell, I thought they would compete. I had Wisconsin on upset alert, and Illinois made me look like a fool. I mean, there were really no bright spots on this Illinois team, and Brandon Peters, he's kind of an on and off, hot and cold kind of quarterback, and he was cold on Friday night. So Illinois, what are you doing? And now that's actually interesting that Illinois performed so badly because they got to face Rutgers this year. And I put them down getting a win of that one. And I don't want to get too carried away because Rutgers, they did only beat Michigan State. That's probably the worst Michigan State team I've ever played or I've ever seen play a game. But Illinois, no automatic wins on the schedule this year. They're going to have to fight for every win they get. If they
Absolutely
get
not. And I think they're far and away the worst team of the Big Ten West. And we said that. They would be competitive in a lot of games. We thought might not be the case. They're going to struggle, I think, this season. And in a Big Ten West where every other team just kind of looks head and shoulders above them, it could be a rough year for the Illini. I don't think there's really much else to say on this game other than Wisconsin torched them, and the Wisconsin air raid, if Graham Mertz is out on the field, is going to be a lot of fun to watch and certainly a weird thing in those Badger uniforms. Graham Mertz is my player of the game, and I assume he's yours.
Yeah, he's mine as well. And I got to say this, though. The coaching staff has got to start calling better plays to match his style of play more. They did it more in the second half, but early in the game, there were a lot of dump-offs. And I get that it's his first game at the FBS level, but this is a quarterback who should not and cannot be contained by the type of offense that Wisconsin has run in the past. So the play calling has got to be better. It's got to fit the type of quarterback Graham Mertz is to a better extent. So I really hope to see the Wisconsin coaches coach Mertz the right way.
Yeah, so that's it for that game. Graham Mertz, both of our players of the game. Just an incredible effort from him all around. Just a great game. Hopefully he's feeling okay. Hopefully that positive test is not legit. Hopefully he's back on the field next week. We can hope. We can all hope. But likelihood it's not. Anyway, let's move on to the next game. And you just hinted at it. Rutgers and Michigan State. The Scarlet Knights get it done 38-27 for 7 turnovers. First conference win for Rutgers since 2017. First win under Greg Schiano in his return to the Scarlet Knights sideline. What an incredible game. 27-0 Rutgers lost this game last year. They come out and win it 38-27. Just awesome to see him win, but I don't know how sustainable it was after this performance because they turned the ball over 7 times, or Michigan State turned it over 7 times, and yet Michigan State still had a chance to win it late in the game. This was not a blowout. This was not the blowout you'd expect from a 38-27 is not the score you'd expect when there's 7 turnovers, but the fact that that was all that Rutgers could put up kind of makes me think that it's not all that sustainable and Michigan State's just really bad.
Yeah, I mean, objectively, from an objective standpoint, this win is not that impressive. I mean, it's impressive for Rutgers, but um, just in general, beating Michigan State this way is not that impressive because, like I said, this is the worst Michigan State team I've ever seen in my life. I think they're potentially going 0-8 or 0-9 when you factor in Champions Week. Um, but from a psychological, mental standpoint, this is huge for Rutgers. Like you said, 27-0 last year. They come in and beat this Michigan State team by double digits this year on the road. Or no, yeah, on the road.
Yep, on the road.
So quite impressive for Shiano's first game. And I don't think they get it done next week against Indiana, but this is something to build on. This is a huge mental victory for Rutgers, and it's got to give all these players, especially a lot of the new players coming into a new system, new program with new teammates, got to give them a lot of confidence moving forward. So Rutgers, I thought they wouldn't be able to get it done this early in the season, but they're already moving in the right direction, and we might see them pick up two, probably not three, but maybe 2 wins this year. That's huge for them because they got I think 2-3 wins last year, but they hadn't had a conference win since 2017. So getting potentially 2 conference wins is enormous for this program, and I think they can very well get it done against Maryland.
Gigantic step in the right direction. I think they can beat Maryland, maybe even beat Illinois. This team looks much improved, even though, the thing with a 7 turnover game, if they forced 4 or even 5 turnovers, I'd be like, wow, this Rutgers defense is really good. But 7 just really sticks out to you and it's like, wow, Michigan State must be awful.
Yeah. Michigan State, like I said, they might go winless this year. This was just horrible.
And who would have thought from Michigan State that they could go winless? D'Antonio really left the cupboard barren when he left. The recruiting was just so down. Nobody was around. You can't really blame Mel Tucker for this, and I think a lot of people might blame him, but you can't. What's he got to work with?
Yeah. So player of the game here, I'm going with Rutgers quarterback Noah Vedral. This is a guy, he transferred from UCF to Nebraska when Scott Frost took over as head coach. He just transferred from Nebraska to Rutgers. He's been moving around in college football, and he had 1 touchdown, 1 interception, so not a great ratio there. But it's huge for Rutgers to just be able to have a quarterback who can consistently complete passes and put the ball where it needs to be. That's something we didn't have in Art Satowski, so huge step in the right direction for Rutgers, and Vedral impressed me.
I'm going with Isaiah Pacheco. Not the most impressive stats, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns, but the 2 touchdowns and a lot of really impressive runs. He looked good. I don't know if he's going to be quite as good as Raheem Blackshear, but he was good. He was a really solid player. And, if I'm going to pick out a single player, I'm going to pick out him. But really the player of the game has got to be the Rutgers defense. 7 turnovers is nothing to laugh at. Even if I think a lot of that is because Michigan State is terrible, you still force 7 turnovers. That's impressive. So I think my player of the game, I'm going to go with Pacheco, but my unit of the game, Rutgers defense.
I like that pick.
Yeah, so Rutgers gets it done. Huge win. Michigan State looking down. Rutgers gets Indiana next week in Piscataway, and Michigan State gets the Wolverines. The other noon game on Saturday, Nebraska and the number 5 Ohio State Buckeyes. They're up to number 3 in the AP poll now after the win. 52-17, the final in favor of the Buckeyes. This one was a lot closer than we expected at the start. Nebraska kept it close. They scored that opening drive touchdown. They looked really good. Kind of fell apart. Got outscored 28-3 in the second half.
Yeah. Ohio State, 1-0. We got a conference win. We got a big conference win. In a playoff position in the AP poll, I'm loving it. I got nothing to complain about. Big Ohio State win here. And like we said, in the first half, it was much more competitive. It was concerning. I will say at first glance, it was a concerning performance. But, they overcame it. And let's keep in mind, this Nebraska team, they've got a good run attack. They've got Adrian Martinez, a good dual threat quarterback. They've got Dylan McCaffrey now playing running back. He's a quarterback naturally, but he's got speed. He turned on the afterburners against Ohio State early. Got some huge chunks of yardage throughout the game. But let's also keep in mind that Alabama and Clemson right away didn't look super impressive. So the fact that Ohio State gave up 14 points in the first half to Nebraska doesn't really, sound off too many alarms. I'm not super concerned when it comes to that. And really last year, when you look at Ohio State's first game last year, his first game under Ryan Day, first game with Justin Fields at quarterback, they beat FAU 45-21. That was one of the closest games they played last year. And it was against an FAU team who they went 9-3. They won the conference. So not a bad FAU team, but this is still a group of 5 team who had 3 losses. So not a huge force to be reckoned with. They gave up points. They weren't their strongest. So Ohio State isn't necessarily always on top of their game at week 1, or at least they haven't been in the Ryan Day era. I think they pick it up soon, and they're going to start looking truly elite in the coming weeks. And I think the fact that this game, where they didn't look so strong in the beginning, that's going to come back and help them against Penn State next week. And speaking of which, Justin Fields, he was great on Saturday by regular quarterback standards, but by the standards by which you look at a quarterback like Justin Fields, a Heisman contender, he wasn't necessarily on top of his game. I mean, he had good stats. He threw multiple touchdowns, had some good passes, but he wasn't great. One of the things that you really look for in Justin Fields, one of his best qualities, is he doesn't feel the pressure too much. He is really hard to sack. He's a hard quarterback to get on. He's strong. He evades the pocket well. We didn't see that early in this game, but still a good performance by him. And I think just like for the entire team, that's really going to fuel him to do even better next week against Penn State.
And you can say Justin Fields didn't have a great game all you want, but just looking at the numbers, he only threw 1 incompletion, and he was their leading rusher too. That's an impressive game. The top 3 rushers in this game were all quarterbacks. It was Justin Fields, Adrian Martinez, Luke McCaffrey, which I think is hilarious. But I thought it was a good game overall from Ohio State, especially in the second half. They just kind of blew the doors off of them. And Nebraska kept it competitive for a while, well into the second quarter. Got to give them a little bit of credit there. Couldn't hang on. Ohio State, talent difference just wins out. And, doesn't surprise me Ohio State came out looking a little rusty in the grand scheme of things. We kind of should have expected that. Weird offseason, didn't get as much prep time, kind of a, last-minute season even. Of course, teams are going to come out looking a little rough in the grand scheme of things, but just an impressive game overall in the grand scheme of things, I think, from Ohio State, especially in that second half. 28-3, the Atlanta Falcons score, but that's the second half point differential. That's a championship team. That is a championship point differential right there. And the first half didn't look like it, but you know what? Got it done in the second. Buckeyes win. And
in the first half, I got to say the O-line play was pretty shaky for one of, if not the best O-lines in the country. It was a bit concerning that they let Nebraska get to them like this, but like the rest of the team, they picked it up by the end of the game. They were strong enough. And speaking of units that were strong, the wide receivers really showed up. I've been talking about this wide receiving group for a while. It's one of the deepest wide receiving cores in the nation, and they really showed that today. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba, or Jackson Smith and Jigba. I still don't know how to pronounce his name because I've always thought it was Njigba, but the commentators called him Njigba in the game. So I'm just going to be unsure of that for a little while. I'll let you know when I find out what it truly is. But he was one of the most highly recruited players in college football. He was one of the best recruits they got this season, and he wasn't even playing from the get-go. So just such a deep group and so much talent in that depth too. And they really showed in that game. The wide receivers were strong. They showed up. Olave and Wilson, consistent as you would predict. They made some good catches. They're a really hard bunch to defend. So, I mean, the wide receivers were great in this game. And I really hope, as you can see on my board, if you're watching on YouTube here, it says get well soon, Olave and Mertz. Olave did leave the game with an injury. I really do hope he's better soon because I think Ohio State will do just fine against Penn State without him because this wide receiving group is so good. But Olave, he is my favorite player in all of football, and I do wish him a speedy recovery from whatever it is he's dealing with.
Absolutely with that. And Jackson Smith and Jigba, only 2 catches for 5 yards, but the thing with him is that touchdown catch he made, one of those catches was a touchdown, one of the best catches you'll ever see.
Yeah. And what's funny is actually later that day, we saw a tight end for Virginia make almost the same catch where he's in the air. He just barely gets a foot in. Incredible work by him and that tight end from Virginia. I forget his name, but you got to give him some props too. But what an incredible catch that was. And the commentators instantly were like, oh, he's out of bounds. But That's exactly what you brought him into Ohio State to do. You look at his high school highlights; he's making all kinds of crazy catches like that, whether it be in his regular high school playoff, regular season games, playoff games, All American Bowl, things like that. That's the kind of plays he makes, and that's just incredible for him. But getting to the point of the defense, we didn't see a lot of great play from the Ohio State secondary, mainly just because Nebraska didn't really test them. They don't have a great passing attack, so there wasn't really too much opportunity for guys like Sean Waite to shine. But I think next week against Penn State, we'll get to see more of that secondary, and I think they'll prove that they still are one of the best units in the nation because Ohio State is, they don't go by DBU. They like to say BIA, whatever you want to call them. They are one of the best teams to produce defensive backs, and I think they'll continue that this year. I think Nebraska might have showed us the recipe for beating Ohio State. Problem is, they just weren't good enough to do it for 60 minutes. You got to be able to run the ball well because the D line is incredible for Ohio State, but the linebackers still are struggling. Maybe they'll pick it up.
That game for tough Borland.
Yeah, tough game for the linebackers as a whole, to be honest. Nebraska really ran the ball down their throat early in the game. So if you want to beat Ohio State, you've got to have a good run game. And your defense isn't going to help you too much. This Ohio State offense is going to find a way to score points. So the main thing is if you beat Ohio State, it's got to be in a shootout. You're not going to contain them. You're not going to contain that offense. So if you beat Ohio State, unless you're Alabama or something, the score has to be in the 50s, I think.
Anything concern you about the running backs? Kind of a quiet game from Trey Sermon. Same with Master Teague.
I'm concerned. I was expecting Trey Sermon to do a lot better, but I think knowing Trey Sermon, I mean, his first year as a star at Oklahoma, he was a really good running back, and he was one of the guys that team really relied on. So I'm not too concerned with him. And one of the things I saw in the running game, well, actually, here's something I am concerned about, the play calling when it comes to running backs. Master Teague was getting too many touches on plays where he should not be utilized. Master Teague is a guy who gets you small chunks of yards, and he does it extremely well. He's the kind of guy you want running the ball for you when you're in the red zone. He reminds me a lot of Mike Weber, actually. Trey Sermon is your kind of guy who's going to get you J.K. Dobbins lengths of yards. So sometimes we're seeing in this game, 2nd and 15, and we're handing the ball off to Master Teague. I don't agree with that at all. But with the point of play calling, here's something I really did like when it comes to play calling. Ryan Day is a gutsy coach, and he proved it. He went forward on 4th down about 3 times in that game, which I love to see. He's not afraid to make risky calls. He's done it. He's had fake punts in the past. He did an onside kick against Maryland when they were up 14-0. He's not afraid to do bizarre things, and I really like that about him. He really showed that in this game, not being afraid to go for it on 4th down because there are multiple plays where Ohio State would have won this game. They could have gone down 17-0. That could have been the score at the half. They would have won the game. But there were multiple times where they had touchdowns that came after successful 4th down conversions. So the fact that they're doing this, they're getting used to it early, that's going to be huge. And when you go against a team like Clemson or Alabama in the playoff, assuming they get there, or whether it's Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship, you're going to need to be able to pull things like this off. So it's really good that they're starting that early. And I just love the gutsy play calling of Ryan Day. I mean, Ohio State fans love to talk about Tressel Ball and how much they hated how unworthy or how unwilling to take risks he was. Urban Meyer was more of a risky coach, but Ryan Day took it to a whole nother level. And I like it. I like gutsy football. I like throwing it all on the line. So Ryan Day, I love that from you. My player of the game, though, to move into that segment, I'm going to give it to Garrett Wilson. You can say Justin Fields because, I mean, he's Justin Fields. It was a great game statistically, but it wasn't up to par with Justin Fields. It wasn't what you expect when he goes against a team like Nebraska. Garrett Wilson, though, he really impressed me. He's going into his true sophomore year. He was a really good true freshman last year. I think he gets even better this year. He really proved that this game. Consistent. He has what I love about Chris Olave. Pure consistency. You can always count on him. That's the thing I love about these two receivers. And Garrett Wilson really showed out in this game. Bright future for him and really bright present for him, to be honest. So he's my player of the game. Patrick, what do you got?
I'm still going with Fields as my player of the game, and that's mostly because, he didn't do anything wrong. 1 incompletion, that's incredible. And he led the team in rushing. We know he's a special quarterback, and this wasn't his best game, obviously. But this proves to you he can even have an off day and still be incredible. He is just a special breed of quarterback. There is nobody like Justin Fields out there. And really the only player in college football I think that can compare to him is Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you heard that quote from Aaron Rodgers a few weeks ago saying, "My down years are a lot of quarterbacks' career years." It's just like that with Justin Fields. His bad games are incredible games for other quarterbacks. So, um, although it wasn't his best performance, there were some plays where, like you said, he only had one incompletion, but there were some passes where that were poorly thrown, not exactly on target, that his incredible receivers came down with. But
Right. He's
bad
lucky to
game,
have the best
yeah,
receiver room in college football.
yeah, but
Makes any quarterback look good.
yeah,
But to be
his
fair,
bad days are
Justin
days.
Fields could make any receiver look good.
That's true. And that's what's so great about a team like this. Elite players at every position. But yeah, a bad day for Justin Fields is a day many quarterbacks would kill for. So this game really was just a testament to the kind of player he is.
Absolutely. And a big win for Ohio State to get going. Penn State next week. Penn State coming off a loss. Doesn't really scare me, though. I think they're going to be fine. You think, right?
Yeah, I think Ohio State should do well, but save that for our preview. That's going to be a really exciting one. Make sure later in the week, Ohio State, Penn State, as well as all the other games this week, we're going to be previewing them. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah. So anyway, next game, Purdue, Iowa. Boilermakers win at 24-20. Aiden O'Connell, the starter, announced right at kickoff. Nobody knew. No Rondale Moore, no Jeff Brom. Boilermakers still get it done. I called it. I like the Boilers in this one. But an ugly game, nonetheless. Not an aesthetically pleasing game. And that's Big Ten. That's Iowa Hawkeye football. Even if you know the team they're going up against, like Purdue is a high-flying offense, it is going to be ugly no matter what because Iowa is going to drag you down to their level, win or lose.
Yeah. Biggest thing I got to say is ball security has got to become a bigger priority for both of these teams. If Iowa never turn the ball over, they win this game, especially late in the game. We're running back. I forget how to say his first name. Makey, is that Sargent, their running back? I don't know his first name, and I don't want to mispronounce it. But Sargent fumbles that ball late in the game. If he doesn't do that, Iowa wins the game. I mean, they were driving. They were about to seal the deal. Then Purdue comes back, scores the game-winning touchdown, and that's that. But with that being said, I do like the running back tandem of Sargent and the main ball carrier, Tyler Goodson. I like what both of them have. And Iowa's a team known for being slow on offense. I think these guys really bring a sense of energy that an offense like Iowa needs. So I really do like that duo at the running back position there. So that's something good to look out for when it comes to Iowa offense.
Yeah, and on the offensive side of the ball, too, for Iowa, Spencer Petras, who that's how you pronounce his name, I learned. I thought it was Petrus, had the okayest game of all time. He is the most okay quarterback. I would call him a little below average, didn't throw a touchdown, but he is the okayest quarterback I've ever watched. Total Iowa Hawkeye.
He looks like exactly what I would picture when you say Iowa quarterback. He is the quintessential Iowa Hawkeye quarterback. He even has the long jersey sleeves that all those Hawkeye quarterbacks seem to wear. He looks exactly like what you'd expect when you picture an Iowa quarterback. So not necessarily a good thing because Iowa's not really a team who produces great quarterbacks, but they've done all right with that model of QB in the past. So maybe they'll be just all right with Petras.
And two huge players, I think, in this game for Purdue. Number one, Xander Horvath. This is the guy he's starting at running back. More of a fullback, you'd think. He's gigantic. Just bulldozes guys. He had a huge game, 129 yards on 21 carries. No touchdowns, though. This is a guy who last year in the Old Oak and Bucket game, I saw him come out on the field, and he had a huge game against Indiana, too. And I'm like, how is this guy running all over IU? Turns out he's actually pretty good. And he's an athletic player, too. He hurdled a guy. He's not exactly just a fullback. He's an athletic player. He's quick. He had a great game for Purdue. And the real star for Purdue and my player of the game is David Bell, who no Rondale Moore on the field, no problem, because Purdue's whole offense was basically either give it to Horvath and let him truck a guy or jump over a guy or throw it up and pray David Bell catches it because David Bell was getting covered all day long. And he did drop one ball thanks to the awful lighting, thanks to the shadows of the sun at Ross Aid. But 120 yards and all three of Purdue's touchdowns go to David Bell, including the game winner. Just a massive day from him. And it shows you Purdue doesn't need Rondale to win. So getting Rondale and your head coach back, presumably this week, maybe week after, that's huge for this team. And it could really elevate their ceiling.
Yeah, I think their ceiling does look higher than we initially thought after this game, but I think there's no way Purdue goes all the way to Indianapolis, and that's because of the O-line. When you have a quarterback like Aiden O'Connell starting for you, I like the decision to keep O'Connell at quarterback. He kind of made me look bad for saying that because he didn't have the best game, but a lot of that is because his O-line was just awful. And again, we knew that. We've been saying that for months. Going into this season, this O-line is probably their worst unit on the field. And they continue to look like that today, or not today, Saturday. Um, I just think it's not sustainable, and it's not realistic to say that this team has a super high ceiling when the O-line continues to not protect a quarterback who's probably average. I would call Aiden O'Connell an average quarterback. You pair an average quarterback with a terrible O-line, I think even with Rondo Moore and David Bell, there's only so far you can go. So I think Purdue goes 6-2 at best. And if they do go 6-2, I think there'll be another team like maybe Wisconsin that goes 6-2 and beats them out in their race to Indianapolis.
With that bad O line though, I think Xander Horvath is the perfect running back for that because he doesn't need a lot of room because he's just going to truck guys. That's his thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he
But I mean,
can
the
get
thing is, though,
past
this Purdue
that.
offense does rely heavily on passing.
That's the
So
thing. No,
while
they
you
are a
do have
pass
Xander
heavy
Horvath,
offense.
yeah. Well, you do have Xander Horvath, who's a powerful guy. This is a pass heavy offense. You got Rondo Moore and David Bell. You also have they got some good depth at receiver. So this is going to be a pass heavy offense for the entirety of the season. So this O-line has got to step it up if Purdue wants to do anything more than second place in the West.
Yeah, because I think a lot of Purdue fans have high aspirations after this one, especially not having your best player on the field. But I think the other issue is the defensive backs. They gave Petrus 265 yards, and he didn't look good really, but he still threw for that many yards. Didn't throw for a touchdown. No interceptions though. The Purdue defensive backs I think need to step up because once they face a good quarterback, once they might have to face like a Graham Mertz or a Michael Penix, assuming Penix can play like he did in the last 2 minutes in overtime and not like he did for the first 3 quarters of the game, I think they could be in trouble.
Yeah, I think so too. And my player of the game, I'm going to give it to anybody who could sit through and watch this entire game that was filled with just turnovers left and right, just sloppy, poor play, especially when you had such an incredible game in Indiana and Penn State going on at FS1 at the same time. If you sat through and watched this whole game, you are the true MVP. David Bell looked good, but there was really nobody who stood out as a guy who I'm like, that has got to be my player of the game. So the fans get this one.
And lucky for Purdue and Iowa fans, who I'm sure are the only people who watched this over the IU Penn State game, this game was over before the IU Penn State game got really good in the last 2 minutes. So lucky for them. But my MVP is David Bell. He was Purdue's offense, basically 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. All 3 of Purdue's touchdowns. Massive. Not much else to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, next game. Northwestern takes down Minnesota, or mixing up my games. Northwestern takes down Maryland, 43-3. Huge game from Peyton Ramsey, the IU transfer. 100th win for head coach Pat Fitzgerald. Awful game from Maryland. And I'm just going to get on my soapbox. I was absolutely right about Northwestern. Defense gives up 3 points and only on the opening drive. And the offense looks good without Mick McCall and a real quarterback. Northwestern is here. And shout out to the running backs. The running backs look good. And I knew the new offensive coordinator, Mike Bajagian, had a great run offense in the past. Got it done.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Bowser looked pretty good. He's another guy. He reminds me a lot of Xander Horvath. But I think Isaiah Bowser really was able to do more than what I was expecting. I saw him as a really fullback type player in the past, but he was able to really do what we've seen from Northwestern running backs in the past. So impressive performance from him. And you can talk more about Ramsey later, but I want to switch it over to Maryland. First of all, this Northwestern team, like you said, they scored much more points than we would expected last season. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that they were playing against a Maryland defense who is just awful. But Talia Tagovailoa, his first game as a Maryland Terrapin throws 3 interceptions. this was not the debut he was hoping to have, and maybe he wasn't ready to be Maryland's quarterback yet. Maybe they threw him into this role too quickly, but at least we got to see him. At least we know what he's made of. And yeah, he threw 3 picks. Not a great day for him. Didn't get a lot of yards, not a lot of positives, but honestly, his picks, when you go and look at the film, they weren't egregiously bad passes. I mean, his picks were not egregious. Some of them were just slight overthrows that the Northwestern defensive backs just took over. Because you got to keep in mind, this is a good Northwestern defense. Actually, this is not even good. This is a great Northwestern defense. And they forced a young quarterback to struggle. I don't think it really would have been wise to expect anything else. Because, again, this is a young quarterback. He's played 12 college snaps going into the game, going up against one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. So I wouldn't get too down until Tua Tagovailoa. There's still a lot of hope for his future. So Maryland fans, don't get too upset about it. And you might be in for a lot of these games this year. A lot of big defeats coming up.
Maryland looks awful, and Northwestern looked really good, just like I thought. So Peyton Ramsey is my player of the game. I'm giving him the award for 212 yards and a touchdown through the air, 47 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He got it done, both facets, no mistakes, looked great. Peyton Ramsey, player of the game.
Yeah, he's gonna be my player of the game too. I wouldn't go as far as to call him a dual threat quarterback, but he definitely can run when he needs to, and that's a good thing to have in a quarterback. Peyton Ramsey really is going to revitalize this Northwestern offense, and he did it week 1. I think he's going to continue to do it in the future. He's really that guy that Northwestern was needing last year. He had a good year at Indiana. Now he's going to have what I would consider a great year at Northwestern. Good performance by him. Really what I was expecting going up against the Maryland defense, but still player of the game worthy.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it on that game. Final game of the day, Michigan and Minnesota. Michigan comes out and looks really good. The Minnesota defense, not good. Terrible.
Yeah.
They just kind of looked like they didn't care. Not a great game from Tanner Morgan either. Kind of disappointing from him. Muhammad Ibrahim was their whole offense, and Joe Milton looks great. You know, maybe it's just because this Minnesota defense didn't look that good. Maybe a better defense like Indiana in 2 weeks could scare Joe Milton a little bit and wake him up. But, you know, for now, Joe Milton looks like the guy through the air and on the ground. Incredible performance from him to start his Michigan career.
Yeah, we assumed that Joe Milton wasn't going to play well early, and boy, did he make an ass out of you and me. I mean, it seems now pretty clear that Joe Milton was going to be the starting quarterback going in this year, and really it wasn't as huge of a blow to Michigan's offense as we thought when we found out that McCaffrey was transferring. It kind of seems like he's transferring because he lost that starting job and he doesn't think he's going to get it back, which is pretty fair. Milton did look really good. So I don't see anybody taking over that starting job anytime soon. And again, this was a Minnesota defense that really wasn't that good last year and has lost some major production, especially in Antoine Winfield Jr. So I wasn't really expecting Minnesota's defense to come up too strong. I was really more expecting Michigan's offense to look bad enough to really cancel it out, but that most certainly did not happen. So like I said, the offense for Michigan, they were impressive. I didn't expect Michigan to go on the road and score 49 points, especially without Nico Collins, but they did it. You got to give them major props. Michigan looked really impressive. And I got to say, one of the reasons for their success was the ground game. They got a dual threat quarterback in Joe Milton, but it was really the running backs who did a lot of the work on the ground that needed to be done. Going into the season, we didn't really think there was going to be anything promising from the Wolverine running backs, but Hassan Haskins and Zach Charbonnet really did come to play. They both looked impressive. I like this duo running back. I didn't like him going into the season, but and I want to stay a little bit skeptical of them because, like I said, it was the Minnesota defense. I want to see them go against a better defense. So maybe we'll have to reevaluate after the Indiana game or the Wisconsin game. But I really like this running back duo as of now, and I think it's something for teams to be aware of in the future. They got to be prepared to deal with Michigan both on the ground and in the air. So great work from the running backs.
Yeah, and you know, that Minnesota defense really just looked like it gave up after Charbonnet's gigantic touchdown run. And you know, with Minnesota though on offense, you know, you just put a bunch of defenders on Rashad Bateman and they fall apart. Aside from Muhammad Ibrahim, who was great, but that's really it. It was Muhammad Ibrahim and just praying that Bateman or somebody else can make a play.
Yeah, and back to the point of this Michigan offense, you got to be wondering, what if Michigan had Nico Collins going into this season. If he was part of their receiving arsenal, which looks pretty good right now, their receiving core is looking pretty good. So what could have this Michigan team, whose best receivers are Giles Jackson and Ronnie Bell, what could they do if they had Nico Collins, one of the best wide receivers both in the Big Ten and in the nation? I think that's going to be a question we're going to be asking ourselves a month or two from now if this Michigan team continues this trend. But I will say, as impressive as the offense was, the defense was even more impressive. They went on the road to an offense-heavy team, and they just smacked them. Tanner Morgan was my Heisman sleeper going into the week, and really going into the season. He's off my radar now. He's completely done because this Michigan team just completely shut him up. They were able to shut down both Morgan and Rashad Bateman. And although Mohamed Ibrahim had a good game, he didn't do nearly enough to put enough points on the board to even what this Michigan offense did. So the Michigan defense, they were impressive, and I got to give my player of the game to Michael Barrett. He was the guy. He forced the fumble that gave oh God, what's his name? I believe it was Jarrett who picked up the interception or fumble recovery, whatever you want to call it, because the ball was technically in the air. So you could call it an interception, but I would call it a fumble. He had a crucial sack. He had multiple tackles for loss. Michael Barrett was explosive on this defense. Really, the defense as a whole could get player of the game, honestly, but Michael Barrett really stood out. He was the one guy sort of leading this group and setting the tone. So he gets player of the game in this one. And just, I got to reiterate the fact that this Michigan defense on a team that I wasn't too optimistic about came in and just shut down a Minnesota offense that was looking like one of the best in the nation, especially coming off last year with all that they did. Very impressive. And I think much more highly of Michigan now than I did going into this week.
Me too. I'm giving it to Joe Milton. Just incredible debut. Really sets the bar high for him going forward if he can get it done against better defenses. Honorable mention to Mohamed Ibrahim. Great game, even in the loss.
Yeah, Ibrahim looked good. And like I said, I think if Minnesota wants to have a season where they go to Indianapolis and potentially become the Big Ten champion, they're going to be relying a lot on him. He had a really good freshman year. He didn't have a lot of the spotlight last year, but I think it's going to come back to him. And a lot of Minnesota's offense is going to rely on him, and I believe in him. I think he's a really good running back, and he's going to get done for Minnesota this year. He really did do it last week. Just wasn't stop, especially when this Minnesota defense plays as poorly as they did. You're going to need a lot from your entire offense to be able to match that, which unfortunately didn't happen.
Yeah, and that'll do it for our show today. So thank you for listening. Thank you for a great week one of college football. Big Ten football, not college football. That'll do it for our show. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you later this week. Have a good one. Bye.